Greeting fellow modelers. Today let's look at an interesting model. This from Scissor and Plane, the F4U-4 Corsair. Love the gull wing, love that it's a huge beast, and here we're going to add a few more details to it. So overall, this is our beast, and we're going to first start with the wings. So let's dig in. Here you see usually I cut out the wing. I need to tell you that yes, sometimes you see my models and they are matte when they are finished because I varnish them with matte. Here now, I'm cutting out the inner portion. This is a wing root. So I'm just cutting off the extra piece, and this I'm going to join. Now pay particular attention to where we have the intake on the wing. See, I'm just marking it lightly with my knife. So that part what is flat, we make sure put apart, and then we curve the leading edge. Then we make accommodation on the lower part of the aircraft profile. This here now, we will just glue together and it should be good. One of the things is that I just cut one half of the wing at a time so I don't confuse the panels. Here I'm joining them now and we should be good. What attracted me to this particular model is, besides the size of the model, it is also the fact that it has that snake decal on the cowling, and those I really like. Make sure that the joints are firm, that the intake is flat, and now we go on to the outer wing panel. Here I'm making multiple cut because that's where we will join it to the inner panel. Use our toothpick, of course, to put in our airfoil. And this is very important, yeah? We use our cake decorating tool to make sure that the wing tip has its airfoil curve, because the smaller you build the model and the more details you can add, it's the more realistic your model will look. Trust me on this. And of course, the usual thing of make sure you paint the edges of your model. When you do this, it adds a lot to the realism. Here we're painting the inner panel, and now we're going to glue our wing panel together. Start with the leading edge, then we do the wing tip, and then we do the trailing edge. Make sure that you press everything against a flat surface so that your trailing edge isn't warped. I mean, I mentioned it for the last few videos, but it's very important that you go and look at Google for reference and you see the tree view drawings of the models you're building. It really helps in you making a better model. I want to take this time quickly to just thank you so much for just being here weekend in, weekend out, just watching me build the different models. There will be far more Scissor and Plane. We're going into Jet soon, and we're going to do a couple more Fiddler's Green. But I really love just doing these scale models at 100 scale because it takes up less space and there's so many different models that we can be built. Thank you so much to our European partners, Bruno, for designing the model. And I want to thank Brent for the recoloring. It's truly an international dream design team. Here I'm putting in the reinforcement. And once we put these reinforcement in, we're good to go. We can now tackle the stabilizer. Really, honestly, it's same like the wing. Outer wing panel, it's a simple matter of curving, folding, and gluing. First the leading edge, then the trailing edge, and make sure that you press everything down against a flat surface. And make sure that you paint the edges. Now, they used to call the Corsair the whistling death during World War II. And fun fact, I learned that sometimes the whistling you hear when that plane is in a high-speed dive, just like the P-51, comes from the flow of air over the gun trough on the wings. So that's interesting. Also, as the aircraft get closer to you, the feedback, the sound feedback to you will increase the pitch because you're hearing it. Anyway, let's go on to the fin. We cut the fin out, and just like the stabilizer, we're going to treat the fin same way. Same routine. We fold, we cut the curves, we paint, we curve and join. So this should be good. Lovely. I just love how this come together. It just makes me want to build so much more of these World War II models. Especially there are a couple Japanese models I would love to build. But this year I think I might focus on quite a few jets. So let's deal with the cowling. Now this is very important and a bit technical, so let's get into it. First, we're going to do the curving of the front half of the fuselage. We're going to paint the edges, the proper colors, put aside. Now the cowling, even though it's 3 parts, we're going to spend the time to make sure we form these properly. So we're going to double the engine mount, and then we're going to put that aside once we cut it out. You see, I'm even tripling it at this point because we want it to be thick, because this will become a former to retain the shape of the cowling. Now we're going to put the joiner tab on the cowling, and then we're going to put several cuts into it once we're finished. This now we will bend inwards because it will take the face of the cowl. We use our cake decorating tool, and we're going to put a curve in it, and then we're going to join it to the front of the cowling. The cake decorating tool we're going to use to curve and put a compound curve in that cowling. You have to remember that paper is just like sheet steel. You can curve it, it's just to a certain degree. Make sure we take the time to carefully align the cowling to what it should be on both panels, and then we use our tweezer to flatten everything. Now let's put on the remaining front half of the fuselage, because basically this is just an extension of the cowling. We just use our tweezer, join it, put a slight curve in it at the front, put in our joiner tab, and we should be pretty much good to go once we do to join it. I mean, for the Pacific, you had a couple planes that are like famous aircraft in it, and this is definitely one of them. And to see that this served also in the Korean War, that's amazing. Here I'm joining it with the tweezer and just love how it comes together. For the engine cowling now, we're going to make sure we can put glue on the edge of it, the engine itself, the former, and we just lock in position. And pretty much that's it. Look at that. You see how beautiful it looks? Now we can do the rear half. There's just something about the fact that I can do so many models at this scale, and I can then put them up on a shelf, and I have all these different models, some known, some unique. In the future, I plan to experiment with doing transparent canopy, so I'll replace it, but I do not have the required skills to design the cockpit interior. Those I will leave up to like Brent and to Bruno and others out there who do it. So that's you see me using a toothpick to mold the edges of the fuselage, and then I studied the cross profile on Google, and that way I know how to shape it. That's why I said Google is your friend, man. Here, putting the joiner tabs and cutting them, and then join. And look at that. You see how the rear fuselage come together? Beautiful. Then we lock everything up once we make sure it's aligned. And time to join the wings. So making a small hole in the leading edge where it's marked out on both sides. Then I'm going to use a toothpick. Just making the holes wide enough. Crank the toothpick, slide in place, and then we're going to cut the excess off. And this now will make sure that it is properly aligned. Now we can do the rest of the fuselage. We put a generous amount of joiner in it, thick enough so that it will make sure the fuselage retain its shape. And then we just join the entire fuselage. And there we have it. Lovely looking model. We just round the underside, and now we're going to do the canopy. So the canopy is just like any other model. We're going to just cut the parts out, and then we're going to use our cake decorating ball tool once we paint the edges, and we just form it. And once we form it like this, we can then join it using tabs on the inside. Just like that. You see that? Lovely. And then we do this for the rest. And once we do it, then we can just final curving, make sure it looks good, and then we just join it to the model. I love it. Generous amount of glue. Take time to place it properly, and then we can take the rid of the excess glue by using a toothpick and just clean up the excess. Look at that. Now let's deal with the wing now, joining the wings. And this is straightforward. By this time our wing join, dry, firm. And we just slide both in place, check the alignment according to what's on the drawing on both sides, and we're good. And make sure while it's drying, you check to make sure the incident is right. Then we put in the reinforcement for the stabilizer and the fin, which is a basic toothpick on the underside, on top. Make that hole, and then we can just put everyone on. Here we put on the fin. Nice. And then we put the stabilizer on. And once you're finished doing this, you check to make sure it's aligned properly. This is important, right? So look on it from the rear, from the front, from above, and just check the alignment before the glue fully dries so you can fix in place. Nice. So now let's deal with the landing gear doors for both the tail wheel and the main wheel. Here we're cutting them out, folding, so we're doubling it, and then we cut out the individual doors. Okay, this here you see I'm cutting out the tail hook, then I'm doing the tail wheel doors, just scoring. This now I am doubling, not only doubling but tripling. So here you see I fold it over, fold again, and this way when I glue I can then cut out. Make sure your knife is sharp. Once you cut those out, you join the tail hook to it. Good. Yes. And then we can glue it to the center line as mentioned, and then we can put in our tail wheel doors. Here now I'm cutting out the main landing gear retract doors, and then we're going to put them in place. Once you're finished, as usual, putting in everything, you paint the edges, right? Make sure you bring realism to your model. Here we go, putting in the tail wheel retract doors. Lovely. I just love how the model come together. Now it's time for the landing gear. So of course, we're going to do it like we do for all the other models we have done for Scissor and Plane. We're going to cut them out. We're going to use a toothpick to initially roll them so they roll properly. And then we'll put aside, and then we get either a 0.8 millimeter or 1 millimeter solder wire. We're going to cut it and then just attach our landing gear strut over the solder wire, and then we're going to double it and then cut according to the length we need. Okay, now the wheel, again, straightforward. We're going to cut the wheel out, glue together, paint the edges once we're finished, and then attach them to the strut before we attach them to our model. So here you see, and I'll put it together and paint it. Nice. Attach the strut to it. Then we make a small hole so that we can put our solder wire through. And that's it. Our model is almost completed. Now the cowling flap, this is totally optional, but it helps. There's an extra piece that's with the kit. That part now I paint the underside and I'm going to cut out. This part I hope to add realism. So I just brush the edges and then I'm cutting the individual flap slots. Then I'm going to just leave a thin line off after I bend them upwards so that we make sure we have what we need. So you see I'm taking the time to bend all those engine exhaust flap up. Then I'm going to cut just about a millimeter or two past it. Just a thin strip to hold them all together. I'm going to now paint that the color of what it is, which is that red. Okay, that earth red tone. Roll it. So you see this, you don't have to do, but it adds so much. Apply a little glue to the inside. Then starting with the center, we use that as a marker. And then we just loop around both sides. And we have that. So that's a little extra that you can put to bring your model even more alive. And then once you're completed, you just simply extend the flap using a tweezer to just bring it out again into the open position. So let's deal with the prop blade. Here, put some glue on it, and then I'm going to not only double it, but triple it. So we just make a cut, and then we're going to fold it again, glue, flatten out, and then we paint the back of it. Once we cut it out, we're going to paint the edge of it. Right here, I'm painting the edge black, and then we twist the blades. So we're now doing the spinner hub, okay? So I use a toothpick, I shave down the back end, glue it to the blade, and then paint the back. This I can clip later. For the spinner hub itself, you see I'm using a sander from a Beauty Shop kit and sand that down, paint it white. Once we put our prop in, we just cut the edge off, put a little glue, and that is your toothpick spinner. And that's a model. Look at that, really looking good. A little addition, we just put in our aerial and we paint it. Lovely looking model. Really highly recommend, okay? I matte it down with some matte varnish, but you can leave it gloss if you need to. I want to thank each and every one of you every weekend for watching this and supporting my channel, especially my Patreon members who make it all possible. Thank you so much for your support. Please consider to like, subscribe, and I can't wait to present more videos like this to you. If you would like to, please consider sponsoring me on Patreon. Until then, my friends, take care. walk good, and one love.